Let's see. Oh, share screen. Advanced. Sure. Okay, so I'm going to start now. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ameen. We're continuing on today with the 26th flash, Treatise for the Elderly on page 323, the 5th level. So Mariam and Rayan, whenever you're available, you may begin. Thank you.
Another time my life was being shaken by harsh conditions. They directed my attention towards life. I saw that my life was departing at speed. The hereafter was drawing close. Due to the oppression I was suffering, my life had started to be extinguished. As is explained in the section of the Risale-i Nur on the divine name of Ever-Living, I thought sorrowfully of how, with its important functions and great benefits and virtues, life did not deserve to be so swiftly extinguished, but to last a long time. I again had recourse to my master, the verse, "For us, God suffices, and He is the best disposer of affairs." This time it told me, consider life from the point of view of the ever-living and self-subsistent One who gives you life.
So I looked and I saw that if only one aspect of my life looked to me, 100 looked to the ever-living and self-subsistent One. And if of its results one looked to me, 1,000 looked to my Creator. Since this is the case, to live for one instant within the bounds of divine pleasure is sufficient. A long time is not required. This truth may be explained in 4 matters. Anyone who is not dead or who wants to be alive should seek the nature and reality of life and its truth rights in those 4 matters. They will find them and be raised to life.
A summary is this: the more life looks to the ever-living and self-subsistent One, and the more belief becomes the life and spirit of life, the more it becomes perpetual and produces enduring fruits. It also becomes so elevated that it receives the manifestation of eternity. It no longer looks to the brevity or strength of a lifetime.
And that is the end to the 5th level of the Luminous verse. For us, God suffices. Thank you, Ryan and Mariam, for a good read. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over this. So, when people share their thoughts, ideas, or this is really the author sharing his reflections, we have to try to connect with it. We must connect with it and see how can I benefit from it? What is he saying? How does it apply to my life experiences and so forth? So with that, is there anything that attracted your attention? Anything that with what was read or what the author is actually, speaking about? Is there anything that we can relate to in terms of our life experiences? And I see Mohammed Said, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
The first thing got my attention and resonated with me is that And the problem is not defined as a problem of lifespan, but it's a problem of immortality. Like I want life, endless life. I want an endless existence, and that resonated with me here. Just a quick sharing.
Thank you. This is a great start, actually. We are all looking for to make our existence immortal. I mean, we all know that we are mortal beings, and I'm a little hesitant to even say I want to make my existence immortal, because I'm experiencing my mortality here. Every moment is passing, and so there's this need, like you said, that a desire that I want everything that I'm experiencing here to be everlasting, to be I want to, in other words, feel secure in my existence. And yep, so that's what the human being is looking for with the reality that we're facing. And just checking in to see if there's anyone else who wants to add on something, or how they see what the author is sharing relevant to them. Anything? I would be, Hamim, without the host in parentheses. Go ahead, please.
I have to change it. I forgot to change it, sorry. Now, anyways, what attracted my attention is the second paragraph. So I looked and I saw that if only one aspect of my life looked to me, one aspect of my life looked to me, 100 aspects of my life look to the ever-living and self-subsistent one. The same idea is repeated in summary as well in the last paragraph, which says, again, the more life looks to the eternal living and self-subsistent one, and the more belief becomes life and spirit of life. Of course, these points need to be discussed. So we can share our thoughts about what does it mean. One aspect of my life looks to me, but 100, maybe more aspects of my life looks to ever-living and self-subsistent one. It means the source of life. That's what I understood. Source of life. Whoever or whatever has given me this life my life must be the source of my life. So source of my life, by definition, must have life, but this life must be self-subsisting one. It means not like me, obtained from something else, dependent on the giver of life, but the source of life must be self-existing living being. So I have to take an attitude saying that, look, this life within me is a transient one, as he described above in the text. And I have been given, and also I have been given the intelligence, consciousness to question it. And when I question it, I understand that my life is dependent. And it is given to me by someone else. But this someone or something else must be the source of life. And the universe, the matter, has no life. Well, so it must be something beyond the limitations of the universe. So it must be the one who created the universe must be the source of my life. So I am here given a transitory life in order to get to know this source of life. It means attribute my life to him as being the source of life and getting to know him, which kind of source of life, which kind of self-subsisting being he is, so that I will connect my existence, I will connect my life to him. So the purpose of my life, I understand now, not to live in this world for a period, whether longer or shorter, but anyway, as long as it is transient, is not where longer life, short life is not really the essential matter. At the end, I will lose it. That's why when I lose it, whether I had it for 1 day or 100 days, doesn't really have an effect anymore after I lose it. The purpose of my life must be to get to know and connect myself to the one who gave me the life. That's what I understood from this text. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this. It helps actually open up more in terms of finding meaning to my existence. So I was just looking into how the author starts off the case with, when he says that the hereafter was drawing close, and that's the third sentence in the first paragraph. The hereafter was drawing close due to the oppression I was suffering. My life had started to be extinguished. So, it seems like a beautiful setup, although like apparently it may not, but if we look into it from like a meaningful aspect of things, then the suffering is a good thing, because it then probes me, or probes the human being to search for meaning in terms of, like you said, finding the purpose of my existence, where clearly everything is being extinguished. And so pondering more over the momentarily existence in terms of how am I brought into existence right here and now at this very given moment. And so there must be an ultimate aim. So I see that I'm subject to change. Everything around me is subject to change, and yet things are being sustained. And so way out, there's no other solution in the universe. It all fails. And so death is the obvious reality, letting me know something. So each moment is dying. This moment, this morning died, and now we're given this afternoon, and it's also decaying moment by moment. So the suffering of desiring for things to be eternal, or even my existence to be continuous. I mean, so this desire really then pushes me to look into, the meaning and what is the purpose to everything. And even like the wordings, my life has started to be extinguished. And, when we see fire later on, when things settle down, there's like fume, and then you start seeing things clearly. So we see what's, beyond it. So when the flame of the fire is extinguished, we can see reality clearly. And so our life here is the same way. It's passing, and so I was wondering what remains at the end of the day, right? What am I to capture with everything that is being extinguished? So really what remains is, again, the impressions that I took away from my existence, the moment-to-moment existence. So it is as if, like you said, one moment is enough for me to fulfill the purpose of my existence, where, I connect my existence to a one that's a living one, a one that is bringing life into existence, that is sustaining everything. And so, that's how then the human being can be satisfied, the spirit or the heart part, being the heart can be satisfied when they recognize, or the true owner of one's existence. And yeah, I'm gonna pause here and see if there's anyone who wants to say something, a comment, or has anything else to share. HBSA, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm not sure if my mic is working properly, so
it's good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm still a little bit unclear about the sentence that was highlighted before about how, when the author says, "I looked and I saw that if only one aspect of my life looked to me, and 100 looked to the ever-living, looked to the ever-living and self-subsistent one, and if one of its results, one looked to me, 1,000 looked to my creator." I think I follow what's been said so far, but I'm still having difficulty trying to understand what exactly the author is trying to say here when he says one aspect of my life looks to me. Does it have to do with the fact that, I find myself in a state of life, like living, that I exist, and insofar as that's concerned, I don't even want to say it looks to me, but like through myself, then, it looks, I'm going to guess the 100 look to the ever-living and self-subsistent one refers to like infinite, infinite ways refer to the ever-living and self-subsistent one. But yeah, and then once that's answered, or maybe if anyone has some thoughts they'd like to share, then moving on to the sentence following it, the results. I was also thinking about free will. Could it have to do with anything with free will? But it doesn't make sense in my head in this context. But any clarification would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, HB. It's a beautiful point you brought up, and I was also thinking about it in terms of, what can the author, saying that if only one aspect of my life, 100 looked to the ever-living self-subsistent one. What I took away from this was that I'm the one that is experiencing are done on time, brought into existence, that so life is given to me, but then I have so many opportunities, like moment by moment, this morning, right now, whatever is it that we're doing, any activities, right? So it all looks to me, it's me, I'm experiencing it, so I'm like that being. But if I were to look into the bigger picture of things, where I'm able to make the connection that there must be a conscious will behind everything, and so, like the author mentioning, even an ever-living one, like I'm changing, things are subject to change, even if I connect myself with the rest of the universe. So I'm like I know that, you know, it's just like one ocean, right? So that's one aspect of my life. Look to 100, 100 look to the ever-living and self-subsistent one. Perhaps, I don't, maybe it can be where, you're right, the whole free will part where, because most of the time I can speak for myself personally, I'm mostly self-centered with my interactions. And if I'm able to, maybe if I'm able to connect with any of my interactions to the source of my existence, then, you know, it just opens up a whole new window looking into a whole vast ocean, I would say. But I don't know if I was able to express myself out clearly, but this is my thoughts thus far. But I have a friend who wants to say something here. Go ahead.
Sure. So let me try to understand this also phrasing. So if somebody asks me, for example, hey, how's your life going? And by life, you know, we experience a lot of things in life. So let's say normally I would say, hey, it's going great. For example, you know, I was able to accomplish this. I went there, I went visited some friends, and I bought this for myself. I went to the park. But all those activities is my experience that I am going through. So let's say if I go to the park, for example, you know, looking to me. So only the experience and what I'm interacting, that part kind of looks to me because I'm the one physically existing and present in that interaction and being there in the park. But if on the scale of how do I explain this particular, you know, event, how do I explain my life and my existence in that place at that location? How do I explain the whole, basically everything that is, you know, the whole setup of my interaction? How do I make sense of that and explain that? So obviously, you know, like if I say life, something that I can understand is given to me. It's not something I make myself. I don't choose or, you know, make myself with life or make myself exist, but life is in my being as it is. And so that, as you know, Brother Ali was mentioning about it, that you know, you have to see that it is something that has been given to you. So it's not something that you make out of your own, or it's not something that, you know, just you can take it from the universe itself. So there is something that in life that is something that is very mysterious. Is there, but in every being, every creature, there is some sort of an aspect of life that is there. So what aspect of that is really looking to us? I would say not much, but just basically the experience and what I make out of it. My conclusion would be the aspect that can only see, but everything else is, you know, the whole order, the whole existence of everything else, including life, is just whatever the qualities I deduce from that experience. Hey, this was wonderful. So that wonderful, where did that feeling of wonderful come from in me? Where did that feel of enjoyment come in me? Or if something was like, oh, I felt horrible, where did that feeling of horrible sense come to me? Where is that? And, you know, all those are parts that make up my life. Hey, what's going on in life? All these experiences are what I describe, but then those experiences are done with my feelings in them and the conclusions that I come up to. So really, where are those, you know, those feelings, those senses, everything that in my experience in life, what do I add? Like, how is that happening? Where's it coming from? So pretty much everything looks to the source who gives that or presents that.
That's interesting.
That's how I'm understanding this,
No,
at least.
it actually helps also, like now, like you're saying, you know, hey, how was whatever this experience? How was your day? I say good or oh, terrible. So that's the feeling. So that aspect looks to me, but I can do more with it in terms of coming to conclusion, like questioning like the various senses and feelings that are imparted onto me. And so with that, I can make some connections with like the source of existence of things, right? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I see Sohail Dar. Go ahead, please.
So, my connection was a little weak, so I'm not sure exactly what everybody said, so I may be repeating other people's comments. But from this fifth level, for us, God suffices. There are several things I found interesting in these paragraphs. The first being is that he, again, is looking at himself first and foremost. So looking at his own experience, his own life, and noticing how transient it is, and how sort of sorrowful his life has been by what he's gone through. But to him, and within him, is a sort of like contradiction, because, and to me, this is ties into the highlighted statement. He's saying, if you think about life, man's life specifically, life in general, but if you think about man's life, you notice, as he says, such important functions, great benefits, and virtues. I mean, there are so many things within life that how can, on one hand, you talk about the virtuous aspect of life, the many aspects of life, for example, consciousness, self-awareness, the ability to reason or to feel or to comprehend, the ability to do things, to recognize and thank and appreciate, and to adhere to certain sort of morals and ethics, let's say, or virtues. And yet, on the other hand, you have this, but how can you have that while on the other hand it being transient? It doesn't make any sense. It's a complete contradiction in life. In other words, to say, it's as if life is telling you, like, in this contradiction, you have to look beyond this life in and of itself. Like, you can't be focused on, transient life in and of itself, because that contradiction won't be solved there. The contradiction also, as he points out, like he knowing that he's about to depart this world, and that, in the life that he did experience, it wasn't the most sort of quote unquote, easy life, so to speak. So how does this all make sense? And as he remembers the verse, "For us God suffices, and He's the best disposer of affairs," that's when he sort of realizes, at least how I understand it, is that while transient means it's coming and going, fleeting. So it's here 1 second, gone the next. So he says that I looked and I saw that if only one aspect of my life looked to me, 100 looked to the ever-living and self-subsistent one. And to me, that's really what the solution is to what he's experiencing, is because he realizes in that sort of, contradiction, like that he's trying to make sense. Oh, it's only because the life I've been given, this, conscious awareness in my existence that I've been given, only one aspect of life looks to me. In other words, life belongs to an ever-living and self-subsistent one, and only one aspect of his sort of quality of being ever-living and self-subsistent looks to me, my brief moment. But if I consider it from the point of view that my life must belong to an ever-living and self-subsistent one, then I realize my life is not sort of detached It doesn't, it's not, there's no contradiction then, so to speak, because my life doesn't look to this world in and of itself. In that contradiction, it looks to an ever-living and self-subsistent one. And that's where I realize, or that's how I sort of get or obtain contentment in my life. Yeah, I don't, when you say experience a drop of water, but I belong to the ocean, I guess, well, I would really, maybe the other way I would say it is, you know, I am simply a reflection, as Narcy always points out. And the thing being reflected is the real thing, so to speak. And I am just sort of tasting an aspect of it by it reflecting in the mirror. And, you know, whatever I'm experiencing, it's because of that contradiction that all the aspects of my life, I realized that the important functions, the great benefits, the virtues, they all must look to an ever-living and self-subsistent one. In this regard, that's how he realizes for us God suffices, because and in a sense, he's the best disposer of affairs, because in being disposed of a life in which he realizes is departing, and he faces things that he perceives as being, or things that he has suffered through or an oppression, it's because that must have been the best way in which he sort of realizes for us God suffices. Because while one aspect of ever living looked to him, in other words, him being given life, just a moment really, when you think about it, I mean, man's life is really just a moment. All other aspects of of life in and of itself look to an ever-living and self-subsistent one. That's why, to me, what he says, even to live for one instance within the bounds of divine pleasure is sufficient, because it's that realization that makes even one moment worth it. Otherwise, even if you were giving 1,000,000 years without that realization, you would be in sorrow and pain, because you know, as he points out, the end is near, whether it's now or tomorrow. Long time is not required. And then he goes on to say, like, if you want to be alive and not dead, you should, I mean, seek the nature and reality of life and its true rights in those four matters. It's sort of, last thing I'll say, it's his explanation, I mean, or understanding of the verse sort of reorients where life looks to. It's like I'm the reflection, and it's like if I'm the reflection, I'm looking at myself and trying to behold my reflection, which doesn't make any sense. Not realizing that I'm simply a reflection that looks to the one being reflected. That's what matters. And that's the conclusion that he comes to from his experience in life.
Mashallah, that was great. Thank you for sharing this. It makes the case very clear, where I'm just a reflection. I cannot hold on to it. What am I claiming ownership over? Yeah, good one.
So my life is a reflection pointing to the ever-living one.
That's great. All right. All right, this go ahead, Sohail.
I forgot to mention, I mean, you know, you see this sort of bear out in human activity. Like, it's as if man's life, like, yearns to look towards something else. Like, if you think about it, people will go to, you know, war or die for a cause that they may never live to see, because their life is just one aspect that looks to the life of their cause, or something else that looks beyond themselves, whether you can name whatever you want, I mean, in history. So not realizing, obviously, those things, those causes may not be right, or even, everything eventually, as he points out, also departs. You know, one empire is here, it's here today, gone tomorrow. But it's in life itself that like yearns to, it can't make sense of what it's like. How on one hand I'm living, but on the other hand I'm departing. It's a complete contradiction. So it goes so far as even to, you know, sacrifice itself to something beyond itself. Whereas with belief, you are simply just handing over life to the one who it actually belongs to. And that's how you obtain eternity. Otherwise, you hand it over to some sort of man-made cause. You're just handing it over to something else that's transient.
Thank you for sharing this great point. HBisa, go ahead, please.
Thank you to all those who shared their thoughts so far. I think the idea is taking shape in my mind. I guess, so then the way that I can try to understand this then sentence where it says it looked one aspect of my life looking to me, I guess perhaps it can be tied to the contradiction that I experience as I exist with all these, you know, wonderful virtues as was expressed, but then alongside with the reality of the transience of things. So then the contradiction or the dilemma, in a way, I guess looks to me, but it looks to, in so far as looking to me, I look to the one that the quality of the desire for immortality is reflecting from. So just wanted to share my takeaways. Thank you.
Thank you, HBisa, for sharing your takeaways. All beautiful comments and summary. Is there anyone else who wants to say something? If not, then I think this was pretty condensed. I mean, share outs thus far. If nobody has any comments or questions, I propose we move on to the 6th level. So I'll give in a couple of seconds. Mariam, oh yes, go ahead, please.
Before we move on, can I share my notes?
That's exactly what I was waiting for. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So my notes for the 5th level were each moment is dying. The desire to be eternal pushes you to question the meaning of everything. One moment is enough to understand your meaning of the universe. There must be a conscious will behind everything. What aspect of life is looking to us? Questions are the key to unlocking all the answers of the universe. You can't focus on transient life. Transient means coming and going. I experience a drop of water, but I belong to the ocean. You are experiencing the reflection of the ocean through this drop. That was the one that FOURTEENTH put up in the chat. He is the best disposer of affairs. My life is a reflection, like everything in the universe. Everything in this universe is reflecting our creator. And that was my last note for the 5th note. That was my last note for the 5th level.
Thank you, Mariam. I'm clapping here. So really, that was beautiful, very helpful. And let me see, there's something on the chat. Okay, yes. Just want to add on one more point to your notes. I mean, what I added also took away. Don't hand life over to momentary causes. I mean, just that was something personal for me to look into. Well, with this, let's see if there's anyone else who has something to share. If not, then let me see, we can move on to the 6th level. And before we do that, HBisa, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I don't want to be holding people back. I just wanted to highlight another phrase that caught my attention, which says, since this is the case, to live for one instant within the bounds of divine pleasure is sufficient. So I guess within the context of what's been discussed, if I utilize one moment of existence, and within the contradiction that I find myself in, connect my existence to the self-subsistent one, or any particular moment of existence that I can connect to its source, and thereby making it meaningful for myself, then becomes a sort of, the bounds of divine pleasure, right? That's, I know we've kind of discussed this before. I guess what I'm trying to say is, any one particular moment that I'm able to then, connect my reality or connect my existence to to its source, then becomes sufficient for me, because then there really, all other, like, that's the most, or that's essentially the most crucial human dilemma that I'm trying to solve. But I just wanted to, like, dwell around here maybe a bit, if anyone has anything to say before moving on.
So, good one. So you want to look a little closer into what does it mean to live for one instant, like as in trying to make it more practical. What does it mean to live for one instant within the bounds of divine pleasure? I'm not sure, Ejbiza, if I clearly caught your query correctly, but if you want to reiterate again, or yeah, can you please actually be more specific? Yeah, please.
I was just highlighting the point, and I guess what I was trying to say is that one moment of existence, which is really what I have, or what I am given, I'm only given this moment. I don't have any other moments guaranteed for myself. In the past, I cannot go back and change it. So what I'm given is this one moment. So I guess when it says to live for one instant within the bounds of divine pleasure, within the consciousness of realizing that I belong to a self-subsistent source, who is independent, that my own existence belongs to, then that is sufficient for me. Yeah, it's not really a question, but I'm just highlighting it. Maybe if anyone else has anything that they'd like to share, just that's my understanding from it. But if maybe people can add on to it, or maybe share what they understand.
Thank you again for reiterating. It makes sense now. So I don't know, does anyone want to say something on this end before we share things out here? Because, okay, so while people are thinking, what an analogy. So, oh, Brother Adam. Brother Adam, I saw your hand up. If you can hear me, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, that sentence is really interesting. I think it's tied to the last paragraph. So this issue of living for one instance within the bounds of divine pleasure is sufficient. What came to mind was, on one side, thinking about all the things that come in this world and go away. It usually breaks our heart, right, to see something come for a very short period of time and then go. But this topic here seems to be helping us look at it in a much broader context, not just things that stay for very little, even if you stay a long time, and then go. It still breaks your heart. I mean, anything passing breaks your heart. But the real concerning issue is, why for so little? Why not longer? And this sentence, which is highlighted, is a very very nice tool and means through which we can reconcile this, feel more at ease about this issue, if not really be excited about it, actually. So living for one instant within the bounds of divine pleasure is sufficient. As it says, long time on record, but this last paragraph, I don't know if it was touched on or not, but the summary paragraph is giving a good description. The more life looks to the ever-living and self-subsistent one, and the more belief becomes the life and spirit of life, the more it becomes perpetual and produces enduring fruits. So your and my ability to live with this consciousness, utilizing this consciousness, and right, and seeing that, look, ever-living one, the self-subsistent one, seeing how the things reflect this, then makes your spirit of your life become more activated, more it brings real life to you, is what I understand. It brings you real life. It brings you life that is perpetual life. So you don't feel the constriction with it. You feel the long length of it because of what it's reflecting, because of what it's opening up to you and for you. So living in one instant within the bounds of divine pleasure is sufficient. What is the bounds of divine pleasure? Some of you can add to it, but if I'm reading this and thinking about it, this last paragraph, which says, life looking to the ever-living and self-subsistent one. And the more you do that, the more belief becomes the life and spirit of life. Right? Or let's say, or with that, your life becomes more related to, more related to being conscious of this one. It actually brings a real life to you. So the first part of that, or the sentence, the latter part of the sentence, which says it becomes more perpetual and produces enduring fruits. Perpetual, you could say we feel it here. Produces enduring fruits, although we may feel an aspect of it here. I think this refers to what's beyond than what we may just experience here. And so, and so that's interesting, because I think what he's referring to is what's commonly known as the hereafter, paradise, but doesn't use this language. And so it's interesting that it's presented in this way instead. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Adam, for your comment. Yeah, interesting indeed. I think what you said pretty much connects or summarizes the comment that was shared on the chat as well, with a moment connected to eternity is infinitely greater than 100 years connected to transience. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think that's like the gist of the summary from this fifth level of the luminous verse.
So this reminds
Go ahead.
yeah, I was saying this reminded me of a common phrase used mostly here, like short,
YOLO.
the most of it, or the purpose that stays in the universe. But I think the author here is saying, you know, that connection with the divine pleasure, feeling that, hey, you're alive. I mean, you realize that life is short. You can see that. Now, what are you making use of with that life? What are you doing with it? And this realization, or like feeling the need and realizing that this life that you are being presented with, and we said that it is a mere shadow and to the ever living, if you understand, if that is understandable, or we can see that, then just make understanding that you are being given and presented this life. So make sure you see who the life giver is and connect yourself with that, and that all the experiences or enjoyments and pleasures you are experiencing is coming from this ever-living source of existence. So that connection is what the divine pleasure, if the more one can be aware or in their realization of that, you can sit down and think about, hey, what am I doing in life? What is this life that is given to me? I think one can contemplate on this life aspect. Where is it coming from, and what is it given for? I'm made to experience all those different things. I'm eating this, I am here doing work, what that life, what those aspects of life entail, playing basketball, but that's maybe 100 years, not more than when you see that is coming from an ever-living one, and why is it there for you? Don't look at me like that. Sorry, my friend is just giving me some looks, but no, but that's how I mean, seriously, what life is meant for. Why is it given? Is to make sure you realize who the ever-living one is, because it is just given for once, as they say, life is short, given once. But what do you make out of it? What do you use it for? What do you conclude? That's what the connecting yourself to the one who is self-sufficient, who is the ever-living, and who is the source of life.
Wow, thank you. I'm sorry, are you done?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm sorry, when you were speaking, this is a profound understanding, or like awareness to live by. I think it's very, it has a subtle meaning to it. It's very satisfying though, if one was to just connect a moment of their life to a one that's bringing things into existence. So just like one piece of cake is enough for me to connect to the source of my existence, rather than 1,000 pieces of cake that just looks to the whole cake itself. So that's all I wanted to share on my side. I see that Brother Adam has his hand up, and oh, so the voice is cutting out. Oh, okay. So Brother Adam, do you have your hand up? You want to say something? Oh, it's down now. Okay. So does anyone else wants to make a comment or say something, or has a question? If not, yeah, I mean, this needs to be digested though, and yeah, that's why we're here, like trying to understand and make sense to what the author is sharing here. So if there are no more questions or comments on this, then we should move on to the 6th level. We'll give in 5 seconds. Miriam, oh, go ahead, please.
I know I'm holding everybody up every single time that you say, let's move on to the 6th level, but I have a few more notes. So is it fine if I share those?
Go ahead, please. Yes, it's very helpful, actually. So yeah, anytime, feel free to raise your hand. Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
you. I have to find where I left off now. Oh, don't hand life over to momentary causes. What does it mean to live for one instant? That means type a question mark at the end. You are only given one moment. You cannot go back or forward in time. This means that you are living in an instant. What are the bounds of divine pleasure? A moment connected to eternity is infinitely greater than 100 years connected to transience. And that was my last note that I added.
Beautiful summary. Great points. Mashallah. Thank you, Miriam, for sharing this. Yeah, it just, alhamdulillah, put things into perspective, at least for me, and people are applauding, a lot of them, right? So I don't know if you can hear, but yeah, we're applauding here as well. So this is great. Anything else from anyone? We have ample time, right? So, and move on to the next level. Let me see, there's something on the chat. Yay, okay. Okay, so if there are no more questions and comments, we can pretty much move on to the 6th level, and we can, let's see, we can ask Miriam O. Do you think you can read that for us? If it's long, then we can split up. You can do the first paragraph and we can have somebody else do the second. What do you say?
I'll read it.
Okay, excellent. So let's do this. Bismillah.
Should I start?
Yes, go for it with the title.
Okay. The 6th level of the Luminous verse. For us, God suffices. At a time when my advancing years of old age were giving warning of my particular parting amid the events of the end of time, which tell of destruction of the world, the time of general parting, the feeling in my nature of love, of beauty and passion for loveness and fascination by my perfection were unfolding in an extraordinary sensitive manner. I saw with extraordinary clarity and sorrow that transience and decline, which are always destructive, and death and non-existence, which perpetually causes separations, were tearing apart this beautiful world and these beautiful creatures in terrible fashion, and destroying their beautiful beauty. The metaphorical love in my nature boiled up and rebelled against this situation. In order to find consolation, I again had recourse to the verse, for as God suffices. It told me, recite and consider my meaning carefully. So I entered the observatory of the verse Surah Nur. God is the light of the heavens and the earth, to the end of the verse, and looked through the telescope of belief to the most distant levels of the verse, for us God suffices. Then through the microscope of the insight of belief at its most subtle mysteries, and saw the following: mirrors, pieces of glass, transparent things, and even bubbles show the various hidden beauties of the sun's light and of the 7 colors in its light. And through their disappearance and renewal, the different capacities and refractions, they renew that beauty, and with their reflections they display the hidden beauties and loneliness of the sun and its light. In exactly the same way, in order to act as mirrors to the sacred beauty of all beauteous one of glory, the pre-eternal and post-eternal Sun, and to the everlasting loneliness of his most beautiful names, and to renew their manifestations, these beautiful creatures, these lovely artifacts, these exquisite beings, arrive and depart without stopping. Powerful proofs are expounded in detail in the Risale-i Nur that demonstrate that the beauties apparent on them belong to not them, but they are signs, indications, flashes, and manifestations of a transient sacred beauty which wants to become manifest. The explanation begins by saying that 3 of those proofs have been mentioned briefly and not reasonably. The treatise leaves in amazement the treatise leaves in amazement everyone of fine perception who sees it, so that in addition to benefiting from it themselves, they find it necessary to try to allow others to benefit from it. Anyone whose mind is not rotten and heart not corrupted will appreciate, admire, and recommend the 5 points explained in the second proof, and exclaiming, "Mashallah, Barakallah," will perceive the affirm that it is a wondrous marvel which will exalt his apparently slowly wanting being. And that goes on to the 15th hope.
Thank you, Mary. Long reading, and mashallah, nicely. Okay. So interesting how the author really starts off with his observation. Is observing here. There's a mention of love and beauty already. Is it good now? Can you all hear me? If you hear my voice, clap once. There's a clap icon, by the way, on the chat, but let's see. we can hear. Much. This is the best that can be done now. Yeah, like enjoy lovely things, beautiful things to look at. And, you know, it's an automatic reaction to, you can hear but can't understand. Oh, you guys can't hear. Oops, my bad. Let's try. All right. So there's some kind of voice, but cannot be heard. Yes, no? Okay, so I don't know. So if that's the case, can someone just take over this in terms of let's walk through better now? Okay. Better now. You're good. Okay, so I'll just freeze like that and over it. Talking about beauty. It's lovely, right? We all like to beautiful things, and you know, automatically you just feel attached to it, and feeling is very sharing that part of his journey here. And but then again, this whole experience of transience and decline, decay, that is our reality, death being the inescapable human reality, you know, it puts a little bit our spirit into a sorrowful mode, or it's like the contradictory human position. I enjoy beauty and I'm experiencing transience here. So that's the human contradiction that we find ourselves with. And so then, yeah, so then the author goes on mentioning about how connecting his being to an eternal source of existence, or recognizing that really what am I to take away from my existence here, like we said earlier, one moment connected to eternity is infinitely greater than 100 years connected to transience, right? And this is experienced at every moment, and that's where, you know, we are constantly interacting or journeying with. It's just like really a journey of the human being in this universe. So I don't know, I'm just gonna pause, and also since the connection is not good, I don't know maybe what has been heard. So Hildar, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just my initial takeaways from this. So to me, in the 6th level, you know, he's going or looking back on the entire experience of his life, and he realizes, like, in his, you know, old age, when he's about to depart this world, or even think about the destruction of the universe or doomsday, really, when you either, you know, one's own death or really the death of the universe, either or, there's like another sort of, you know, contradiction present again. And you know, as he got older, really, if you think about it, I mean, as any individual gets older, they become quite sensitive. Because I guess maybe when you're young, you don't maybe necessarily appreciate as much things that are departing, things that are beautiful, or that you find, you know, lovely or fascinating. But, you know, as he gets older, he realizes this is, you know, it's within his own sort of reality to prefer them, and to be, and because he prefers them, when they leave or when they're dying and departing, he's very sensitive to their death and apparent non-existence. So death tears apart the world, this beautiful world, in a terrible fashion, because what's greater than what appears to be non-existence, or what's a greater end, or a greater, a more terrible way to die than to go into non-existence, I guess. And he calls it a metaphorical love, and I don't know if I'm right. Maybe the reason he calls it a metaphorical love is because it's his love for things in this world that he prefers, that he finds beautiful, and it's metaphorical in the sense that it's not what man's love is intended for. In other words, the very fact that he doesn't like things being transient means his love is not for transient things that depart. That's why it's a metaphorical love. But it's for things that are permanent, beautiful things that are permanent. And that's when, and as he says, rebels against situation, because man doesn't accept it. It's not within man's reality. The way in which he's made to accept this sort of state. And as he finds recourse or solution in what really must be the truth. He says, "For us, God suffices," and it pointed him to the verse, the famous verse, "God is the light of the heavens and the earth," or the beginning of that verse, and so on. And what I'll say just briefly after that is that through that verse, he realizes that things are just, as he says, mirrors, pieces of glass, bubbles, transparent things that simply reflect something, a transcendent beauty, a sacred beauty that desires to be known. And because it's transcendent and sacred, for one to know or to attach oneself to that sacred and transcendent beauty, the beauty that's reflected in this world must be renewed. In other words, things must depart and new things take their place, and them too leave. Just like every spring, flowers come and then every winter they die. To demonstrate that there is a sacred and transcendent beauty at work that wants to be known. That the things themselves are just reflecting his one aspect. Each particular being, each particular flower, every spring is reflecting one aspect of his, his beauty, his absolute beauty. And in that realization, you see that, these pieces of glass, these mirrors, they're just really to turn you not from the reflection to an all beauteous one whose beauty is undying, is everlasting, which is really not a metaphorical love, but it's a sort of a true love, because man's love doesn't accept things that are dying. That's why it rebels against the situation. And you can see them in the tiniest of creatures, or the most subtle of creation. Let's say in flowers, let's say how the setting of the sun reflects on water, how in rain, droplets of rain. I mean, anything you can think of, small and big, but they all are simply just mirrors that turn you back towards one that your love is truly compatible with, one whose beauty is undying. So that's and as again, that as the verse says, "For us God suffices," because the world can't suffice his need for perpetually existent beauty. but the one who reflects on this world can.
Thank you for sharing your comments on this. It's interesting that everything boils down to love at the end of the day, because, wait, let me just pause here because it's background noise. Okay, yes, so we're talking about, the sense of love that is imparted onto the human being. It's if one was to ponder really into their existence, it's all about what do I do with this feeling of love? And it reminds me of, I used to have this friend, every time we would meet, he would say, les affaires du cœur, as in the affairs of the heart. It's always something, right? There's always something we love and we don't get it. Oh, I love this, I love that, I love him, I love her, right? There's always something going on. And this is it. And the author pretty much is sharing out that, how am I to, what am I to do with this feeling of love? Yes, it's experienced by anyone, but it's not to be spent on transient things, because like you were saying, they depart, and more so it's to be used for something undying. The author mostly mentions, undying beauty, right? Eternal lover. So it's supposed to be used for that. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. And that was interesting. I like the part you said about my love, this feeling of love is only compatible with this true object of love, or the eternal living one. So that was exciting on my end. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? We have 5 more minutes. So is there anyone else who wants to make a comment or wants to say something or express themselves out? Feel free. Mohammed Said, go ahead, please.
Not specifically to this section that we read just now, but in general, this one and before this section, the author's way of calibrating his situation to receive guidance and healing from the verses, which is like just one verse almost. It got my attention, and I kind of admired that. So the human condition becomes very essential and meaningful when the explanation or when something makes it meaningful. I don't know how to put this word, but like it is the human condition is on one hand, and the guidance or the speech that can be guidance on the other, and they perfectly fit. And it, as far as I see here, within the context of this verse that the author is using to be connected with the verse, and through the verse to be connected with the ever-living one. So that got my attention.
Thank you for sharing your comment. You're right in terms of this human condition that we find ourselves with, just like contradiction that we find ourselves given existence with. It can only become meaningful once it's connected to something that's eternal, and that's where really where the true meaning is of the purpose of my existence. That's how the human. And we have Mohammed Said, are you done with, you want to add something? Because I see your hand up. Otherwise, thank you. Okay, so Mariam, let's hear from you, perhaps with some summary. Go ahead, please.
Yes, actually, I was going to share my notes, even though they're not many. I do have a few notes for the 6th level. I'll try to make it a bit fast since we only have like 2 minutes left. Okay, so for my first note for the 6th level was each thing or object in this universe is reflecting a different part of his beauty. What kills man most is to be separated from what he loves. There is always something you love but don't get. Love isn't meant to be used for transient things, because our love comes from our Creator who is eternal. Our love is meant for someone eternal because of this. And that was my last note for the 6th level. That was the only summary that I could get. But yeah.
Mashallah, beautiful summary. Thank you, Mariam. That is it. That was the gist of, at least for me, what the author is sharing here. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add here, but this is, yeah, I think very refreshing. Alhamdulillah, very grateful for this moment, opportunity, and sharing our understandings of what the author is saying. And with this, if there's anything, a last comment, I'll give in 5 seconds. Otherwise, we can call it inshallah. Okay, inshallah, next Saturday. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana. Glory be unto you. No knowledge. Allahumma alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Bi hurmati suratul Fatiha. Ameen. Alrighty, assalamu alaikum everyone. See you.